Thank you for coming. And as always, we're going to be here for about 2 hours for this event, but we have a marathon day today. So we have the channeling going till 3. We have a short break. Then we have Ethan Fox and Barb Morey doing their energy transfer. And we have another little short break, and we have Barb Morey doing an awesome aura workshop that you don't want to miss. So stick with us all day. We'll take breaks online and then come back. And then here we'll have breaks as well. And we have some snacks and stuff. So this is an interactive session. If you're new, we're going to do a little bit of just catching up on some of the themes that have been coming in and stuff that I've been noticing in my work. I'm happy to take questions or intentions for that. So if you guys have something you want to talk about, please raise your hand, let me know. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever topics are really on your mind. And then out there too, you can post in the chat. Just post in the chat whatever comes up for you guys that you want to hear about, chat about, and we'll go from there. So the first thing I want to mention for those of you who might not be familiar is I have an inner circle community that gathers together for channeled courses. And this inner circle community has just been growing and blossoming and connecting. And one of the most beautiful things that's happening is we're starting this movement together based on the channeled material. So within the inner circle community, people are forming local groups in their area across the country and getting together and studying the channeled material, discussing it, getting together face to face and just kind of strengthening the bond. And I have just been so moved by this. It's been such an incredible thing to witness, but also just knowing the people that are in my inner circle community, the people who come to these meetings and who I meet with across the country, they are all doing amazing things. I'm here to tell you, we have healers, we have teachers, we have people who are working with technologies that are just kind of on the precipice coming to the surface, who are combining into these groups. So I can tell you there are good things that are happening. But the reason I bring this up is I truly wanted to support these groups and help them to thrive. And many of you know I've been channeling a couple of books that haven't come out just yet. And it's been a big effort for me. But I decided that with the first book, I'm going to start releasing the manuscript chapter by chapter to my inner circle communities. So if you are in my groups and you want to find a group for you, I'm going to put together something on my website. You can type in your zip code, find people in your area. Until that's together, if you want, you can search us out on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, shoot us an email. We'll hook you up that way as well. And then I'm going to start divvying out my manuscript before it goes to publish. And there might be a few changes before it's final, but you all get the first version, and it'll be a great piece to come together and chat about, because I think it's perfect time right now to release this. And it's not quite ready to come out in full as much as myself would like. It's just beyond me. So that aside, in the Lightworker Inner Circle groups, I'm on course number 12. And we just launched it 2 weeks ago, Monday. And this is all focused on embodying freedom. And I noticed there's kind of this uprising in the community of embodiment and this whole theme of embodiment. And everyone's got a little different twist on what embodiment truly means. And I feel like I've been getting a real good taste in my personal life about how challenging embodiment truly is, but also are getting some really supportive information in the course that I want to share as well. So last Monday, we had Kuan Yin come in and offer this really beautiful teaching. And the title triggered a lot of people. It was even curious to myself because I download the whole outline, right? Before the class launches, I downloaded it. It's a channeled writing, and it was entitled Spiritual Mayhem. And I thought this will be interesting, right? And conceptually, I kind of understand what that is. And I know myself, we kind of get into this vicious loop with spiritual tools and practices to try to attain something that we don't believe that we are, right? And that's the basis for the whole topic, is that sometimes we are using spiritual practice to judge ourselves that we're not good enough and we need to be better. Or especially what Kuan Yin was talking about was trying to get us out of situations that we don't like. And so when you think back, okay, to when you awakened, and I know a lot of us have been in this community and this conversation for a long time, a lot of you probably longer than me, we have to consider that spiritual teachings and tools and practices manifest on the planet to meet our consciousness. And this happens in every single area of our lives. It's kind of interesting, right? When you think about our medical institutions, for example, they're not inherently bad. They were created and manifested in a specific consciousness, in a specific vibration. Their intention is good, but we're not meeting that energy at the same level that we did when those medical institutions first arrived, right? And there's some discordant patterning going on there, some things that are no longer serving our non-physical selves. But perhaps when this was manifested, our non-physical selves weren't really the priority. You know, when we think about our human collective and how focused we've been in physical, we can see how that stuff came to help us. Because I say this in every single session, source energy is good. We're never disconnected from source energy. We're always sending some signal, and we are meeting some need or requirement that matches who we are. So if that's the case with medical institutions, it's got to also be spiritual teachings, right? We manifest spiritual teachings and we interpret them at the level of our consciousness. So being more physically focused, of course, some of our first introduction into spiritual practice would be to change our physical reality, okay? But what Kuan Yin is saying is we have to be more balanced in how we use spiritual tools and how we actually embody what we know. Because so many of us who are here have done so much work, right? We're always talking about we've done the work. Oh my gosh, have we done the work? And we've studied so hard. There are so many things that we know. And I think it's important to keep studying and to keep growing in your spirituality, but also we have to consider that if we're not meeting our present moment with what we've learned and who we've become, we're creating kind of a void, right? And that's what the mayhem refers to. So when I really got down to the nitty-gritty of what is spiritual mayhem, it's kind of like a miss point. It's a misfire. It's a point where we're always staying somewhere that never meets our present reality, right, in order to change it. So a perfect example of this, I think, which might also trigger some people, is our monetary system. So we have a lot of people in this community who believe that we shouldn't charge for spiritual service, or that we need to go to, a completely energetic system of currency. And I agree with that in theory. I think that we were created in a higher intention, a higher dimension, where we didn't really need to count and measure all value in that way. But it doesn't make logical sense for us as a collective with a monetary system that we manifested to go from what we have today and jump all the way into what that intention is of no currency, no physical currency. We can try that, and there may be some people on the planet who are doing that very well. But regardless, it's a timeline that we have to meet in order to change, right? So I'll give you the perfect example, and if you guys are in my Inner Circle monthly program, you heard this already, but I'm going to repeat it. I had this really great session with a woman who is a CEO, I believe, of a charitable organization, actually had been in nonprofit her whole life. And she said, all I wanted to do with my life was serve and create change and help people. And I got involved with these charitable organizations, and I tried so hard, but could never make a difference because the hierarchy's there and the rules and the regulations and the federal government and all these things. And she said it was so frustrating. What the guides came in and said is, your intention and your consciousness was vibrating at a level that that charitable organization was not created in, right? So we have this organization that vibrates in a slower speed or is in a different consciousness, not unlike our medical institutions, right? We come in with a higher consciousness and we're trying to work through that system, or we're trying to change it, and we create this kind of void where those timelines never cross. So we're spinning our wheels and we're using a lot of energetic currency. So this was the huge, huge focus from Kuan Yin, is that our freedom, our sovereignty, to embody that, we have to have access to all of our energetic currency. And a lot of us are spinning our wheels in areas where we're draining that currency so much that we never meet the timeline we want to change. So think about this. If you're using spiritual practice, first to judge, to say, okay, the situation that has arisen is my fault because I wasn't vibrating high enough. I obviously have karma. There's some past life that, I have to resolve. And you start that line of questioning. You can probably get some valuable answers, right? Maybe you'll find out what lesson you need to learn, and maybe there was a past life that you've now triggered a parallel to. And that's all really valuable stuff to know. But embodiment requires us to meet that timeline with a specific frequency, right? So now our spiritual practice is kind of taking us into that realm of constant questioning, constant judgment, and not allowing us to be present in what is. And the true spiritual path of any soul on this planet is really to be in the midst of any experience to evolve. And Kuan Yin is saying, it's not about learning a lesson. It's about walking through the other side because you're changing your reality through that experience. You're becoming someone new based on what you've learned in that experience. By being present, you're becoming aware of things in the field that you never would have tapped into if you weren't in that present moment. So if that's the case, then what is spiritual practice useful for? Well, the message that came in was, any spiritual practice is truly bringing us closer to our inner essence, right? Its goal is to allow us to meet the present moment in awareness and consciousness. And so if we're using spiritual practice in this way, we should be able to navigate difficult experiences in our life such that we don't create that void or that miss, but we actually change them, right? So going back to the monetary system, we can create a potential of what we want that to look like, and we can repeat that over and over again. And that's a really valuable practice. We know this, right? We activate the feeling of a new monetary system coming to the planet that's beneficial for all humans. That feels pretty good. And we anchor that in, and I think that's relevant. I think it's useful. I think it's purposeful. But if we stay there, we don't allow ourselves to meet the monetary system where it is with our new consciousness. So what do we do about that energy? It's all in the way that we perceive the way money works in our personal lives and how we meet it, right? If we're always meeting it in fear, in the way it was designed, right? We're just activating that fear more and more. If we're using the monetary system to support us, and I'll give you a little personal window into the way I look at this in my own life. And I've talked about this before. I have varying levels of service. I open source a lot of my work. I open source this channeling today. I'm open sourcing my book. There's a lot of things that I offer free of charge. And then there are levels going up from there that people can interact with based on how much currency it takes from me. And that monetary level isn't really set based on number of time or worth or value. It's really a part of how I am meant to support my mission on the planet. Because let's face it, I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids in college. I'm supporting them 50%. If I had to focus on money that much in my life, I could never do what I'm doing right now. No way. Like, I need my bills to be on automatic pilot, right? I don't need to live on a yacht. I don't need to live in a mansion. I just need a flow of currency to come in to take care of what needs to get taken care of, so it runs in the background. And then I can offer what I have to humanity in a variety of different formats. And that's really, I think, the middle ground. That's where the firing comes together, right? It's like we're not standing around trying to negotiate with something that's bad in our lives. We're trying to work with it in a way that changes it for us and for others. And so we can apply this also to spiritual practice, right? We have to be in that zone where we allow spiritual practice to come into our lives at whatever level we need, knowing that what happened before isn't wrong necessarily, but we're evolving and changing. And embodiment is a balance between how we meet our present moment experience and what we're attempting to flow with in the non-physical. So it's not wrong to have desires. It's not wrong to want to change your experience, but you also have to notice the things that you've already changed, right? Who you've become and what you have attained in this life. Because we all have those things that when we, I guess, come into alignment with them, that's the same frequency that we evoke in those desires that we are trying to reach in the non-physical. When we see that brand new monetary system in our minds coming to the planet and we feel so excited about that, satisfied about that, we have to also allow that to take place where we are. It's not always easy, right? Times of turbulence are guaranteed. As a matter of fact, what Kuan Yin said is that fear and currency actually vibrate in the same, fear and courage vibrate in the same frequency. That fear and courage are like almost the same energy. And we don't perceive that in our lives. We're often so restrictive around what is that we don't see if we can meet it face to face. That's where the courage comes in. And so this course is really about what we're facing on the planet, which I think is a myriad of issues that affect our personal lives that we're trying to negotiate with, but we might be holding back and waiting for them to change. You know, like I'm not gonna participate in this until it changes or something gets done about it, right? Or yes, we need to jump from here to there. So I'm gonna be over here, but I'm not gonna be in the pool or the mix where anyone else is. And I don't think that's how this split of timelines we're in is meant to really play out, right? I think that for us to change where we are in the moment, we have to be present in that moment, and that's true embodiment. So what happens if we don't like where we are? You know, a lot of us have some pretty difficult circumstances that we've manifested in the body, in our financial situation, family, traumas, all of these things. Well, I think emotional frequency is a really important thing to talk about. And I want to bring in what I'm coming to in the recipe for human creation. Because I think even this is changing, right? Like if we're a humanity that's constantly changing, then the way that we interact with energy and the way we manifest has got to constantly change, right? I mean, that's the way I look at it. So we have several components at work to be a creator. We all know the thought mechanism, right? Thoughts are things, thoughts, I mean, that's so important. But spiritual practice really comes in to help us with that. And I think that's the value in having a daily practice. Because when you, through meditation, activate that inner truth, that inner essence, you see the thoughts for what they are. And that's true consciousness, right? Well, if you're conscious, you see your thoughts. People who are not conscious or not awake, they are not seeing their thoughts for what they are. They're acting on those thoughts, or they're allowing them to create timelines that don't serve them or the planet. And that's the big difference. Emotions are really critical. We know this as well. That's how we cultivate a vibration. But we can't always be in this high vibration emotionally all of the time. I think that's a misnomer and a falsehood. What the guides have talked about is stuck emotion. And a lot of us know this, so we might have a trauma, an inner child wound, something that we experience. We might not even have conscious knowing of what that is. Something where we felt fear or instability, or we're walking into the unknown. And we might have sucked it up. We might have not wanted to address it. That fear Vibration, sadness, mistrust, whatever it is that's still within you is always a part of your current vibration. It like becomes a filter, and it's how we perceive our reality. So that's why it's really important to know that if things are going on in your life that aren't awesome, you can be mad. Right? If things are going on in your life that aren't fair, right? You can be upset. I mean, I think it's really important that we use those emotions. And actually, in the book that I channeled through the Pleiadians, I talked about how emotions are actually harmonic. When we allow them to express very constructively, especially in the moment, when what's happening is happening, we bring ourselves back into alignment, vibrational balance constantly. And so I think this is one of the big components of creation that we're really working on right now with an influx of divine feminine. And I think divine feminine isn't as easy as what we thought it would be, right? I mean, divine feminine, it sounds like really cushy and compassionate and we need to love ourselves. But I'm realizing it's a lot harder to implement than what we may think, because we've been so entrenched and ingrained in not feeling and pushing those emotions aside, that divine feminine, it really will get to the core or the crux of what's there quickly and cause you to get really vulnerable with yourself and others. And I'm finding patterns in my life as well where I'm so inclined to meet my physical reality in an overabundance of masculine, right? Like physically plowing through something that wasn't right and trying to make it right, trying to hold people accountable, right? All of this stuff that we are used to doing, which is kind of the way, right? You know, hey, something wasn't fair, we need to make it fair. We need to make it equal. And I'm realizing now that we can't really address things that way anymore because it's a judgment. And those judgments take us outside of what has now become this massive collective union that's coming back together. You know, we've all been connected as humans, but with this raised in Schumann frequency and everything that we've experienced with the pulls on the planet, we've just become more conscious. And that divine pattern, that flower of like sacred geometric pattern between us, it's stronger than it ever was before. So when you're in judgment of yourself, you're affecting everything. When you're in judgment of another, you're affecting everything. And it's harder now. It's harder to go that path because it feels slow. It feels hard. It doesn't work out so well, right? So we have to kind of relinquish that. And the divine feminine also comes in to teach us that regardless of what we've manifested thus far, it doesn't mean we're not good. There was this whole analogy around goodness, that we only manifest the good stuff in our life because we're doing things that are right, and the bad stuff in our life comes because we did something wrong. And what Kuan Yin said was, absolutely not. She said, a lot of times the things that humans perceive as bad are created because something good is about to happen. It's a request that you made. There's a change or a transition in your life. And things are clearing out of the way. People are moving out of the way. You're co-creating a new experience that is very uncomfortable and difficult to walk through, but nonetheless is something that you wanted. And we forget this, right? We go into that judgment mode where, oh, this is something bad, so I am not good, right? And spiritual practice to attain goodness is another waste of energetic currency, okay? So the third component of creation then has to be some form of divine plan, right? I know there are a lot of people, there are camps that are, it's all planned out. We have a divine plan. It's all flowing in exactly what it's supposed to be. And then there are other people, we're creators. We create it all. Well, I'm coming to believe through the channel transmissions I've been offering that it's both. It's always been both, and it has to be both. So we are coded with a divine plan. That divine plan is always up-leveling at the level of our conscious awareness, and we can create it. We have a hand in creating it. But to some degree, it's always going to manifest to our highest and best. So we can project as much as we want. We can say, I want this kind of car. But in the fifth dimension, the car is going to show up not because it was something material that you wanted, but because it's meant to serve something that you are here offering humanity. It's a really different energy to get involved in, right? We can still have good things in our life. We can still manifest good things, but we're really moving away from material just for the sake of material. I think we're moving towards material that's really supportive for our non-physical offering to humanity. Any questions about that? Thoughts? I got about 10 more minutes. Okay. Anything anyone wants to talk about? Themes, questions? All right. Well, I'll bring in one more then. This whole theme of embodiment is interesting at a time on our planet when our bodies are going through such a huge transition. And I know those of you who follow my work, this has been a constant theme for us in the transmissions that I've brought in general, as well as some of the programs and classes that I've done. And I noticed that our bodies are starting to come into this alignment with higher vibration. And this can be another area where we really misfire, because a lot of people are on that kind of goodness spiritual journey with diet and exercise as well. And so the theme of embodiment is truly becoming aligned with what your body needs, which is unique for every single individual. This is a huge topic that we explored in my Lightworker 11, which was all about truth. And what we're seeing right now is that what we believe to be truth really has to resonate with us at the level of our higher consciousness. And it's really important right now to realize that, because what I see going on in well, it's not just the spiritual community, I think it's going on everywhere, is that there's this movement toward rightness in the way that we approach the physical body. And I think it's important for us to even let go of the people that we believe are doing wrong with their bodies right now, to give them the opportunity to find that balance with us. It's huge, right? I mean, if we're doing something to attain a physical material, a physical body, and we're judging other people because they're not doing it, we're really negating the whole activity. Because everything that we're in the midst of right now is a collective energy. But what's interesting about this is we're all so unique in how we need to connect to this collective design, right? I mean, the way that you might connect to spirit guides, the way that you channel and heal, and all of these things are so completely different. So completely different. And I can tell you, when I channel, that's one of the most important questions that comes in is, what can I do about my body? What do I need to rid from my diet? And it is across the board, the answers that are given. But the one common thread that's always present in these messages about food or body is that you have to allow yourself to get into alignment with your own truth. In other words, what you're judging in your body is creating resistance. And if that resistance stays there, you're going to probably make the wrong choice. And that wrong choice is going to take you on a path that doesn't solve whatever it is you're trying to heal, right? So we have to use this divine feminine, which is, again, a really tough thing, this divine feminine energy, to really just be okay. Not okay, I'd say like to be really awesome at who we are now, what our bodies are right now, the way that we've manifested them, maybe in a dimension that no longer exists, and the transition that they have to go through. Because ascension symptoms is another big thing that's been coming in to my Lightworker program. And, you know, you can look online. We've had so much. I mean, there's no question. Ascension symptoms are a real thing. We have really high energies, and they're very unstable, up and down. I mean, you're going to get exhausted. You're going to need to shift your diet. You're going to purge. I mean, all of these things, I can tell you because the common threads show up in the Facebook feed and the emails. It's a real thing. But there's only one defining way to resolve an ascension symptom, and that is to listen to it, to be present with it, to allow it to be. Be your body's constant companion. If it needs to purge, if it needs to sleep, instead of judging yourself for it and resisting it, right? And I think this is really what we're coming into right now, is that allowance to let our bodies let go, let down of everything that we've been creating within it, so that it can reorganize, in a sense. Like if we're always so quick to try to get somewhere with our bodies and everything else in our life, we really miss out on the opportunity to hear what our body truly needs from us at the moment, which might just be to let it be the way it is for a little while. And I think this is a perfect energy to get really grounded in that, you know, to be okay with what the body wants, what it is in the moment, what it needs. And really, as we do that, that resistance lifts to the point where we automatically get on the right path. I mean, our body's always going to point us in the right direction. And in a sense, I believe that body has been in that third dimension, and our consciousness is really up here where that mist or that void is still taking place as well. And that's why our bodies have had such a hard struggle. You know, it's still material that holds information that we haven't allowed to integrate and change. And it's the last place. I mean, if you think about physical reality this way, it's kind of like that last stopping point in the energetic spectrum. You know, everything that we receive energetically works out in all of these etheric layers. And then it gets to our bodies, right? And then our bodies are a slower speed. Our bodies need more time. They just need more time to work it out. And that's okay. So that compassion that we have has to be a part of our physical transitions in the body as well. All right, we have 5 minutes. Any questions? Yeah. I'm going to hand you a mic just so everybody can hear on the call.
What are your beliefs on the reason that we exist with such an intense level of consciousness compared to other creatures like animals and whatnot?
Oh, I think animals have a very high level of consciousness. I think they just are utilizing it differently in the physical field. Well, I mean, when you think about it this way, all universal beings have different levels of consciousness and are using it in different densities and dimensions. So the way I look at this is that we are all collectives. And we all have intentions as a specific collective. When I look at the animal collective, for example, the message I get is that they're really just here for unconditional love. That's why animals are here. That's why they exist at this plane of reality. So they might not be so low consciousness so much as that unconditional love doesn't need to be expressed in the same way that humans are expressing it. I mean, in a sense, I think animals are really using more of an energetic type of love on this planet to serve through than what humans are. I mean, when you look at intergalactics, okay, so we have Pleiadians, Arcturians, all these different interdimensional beings. They're all in different dimensions and different densities. I actually had this question the other day. Well, you know, are the Pleiadians just at one level? Are the Arcturians just at one level? Well, no. I think our DNA has a lot to do with, you know, as humans and as interdimensional beings, what level of energy we're at. So higher dimension isn't necessarily better. Higher dimension is the lack of a need to be in material existence and separate yourself as an identity, and it's more access to non-physical information. So I believe that in this universe we have 12 dimensions, a 13th is forming and not fully there yet. And I think in those dimensions, every level is another access to the Akashic Field that is opened. There's less density, less physical form. That's just a choice. And I think also that the DNA is directly connected to a universal grid, and that connection becomes integrated and stronger as you go up that ladder, we'll call it, of ascension. I don't know, did that answer your question?
For the most part.
Okay, yeah. There's something else? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, do you believe that there's a timeline where we made it to the last dimension, like the 12th dimension, or are a part of us are forming in the 13th dimension? And to compound on that question, do you think that our higher selves that may have made it to this 13th dimension or 12th dimension, do you believe that they may be helping us to form ourselves currently to make this timeline to make it where we in this timeline can also make it to that dimension or the end goal or the finish line and whatever you call
yes
it?
And yes, I agree with you on that. I think timelines are infinite and that our soul is fragmented into many. I will see often in channeled sessions that souls who have been on the other side of this transition at varying levels will come back in this timeline to do something again in a different way. Like they have ancient knowledge, futuristic knowledge, technologies, information they want to bring back. Our higher selves have knowledge of every timeline our soul has ever been on and continues to be on. So there's no beginning and ending to any timeline. And our access to that, the more conscious we are in the higher dimensions that we reach, yes, we have more conscious knowledge of it, but I still think it goes on. I think it's going on right now. So, for example, every human, this is a long question, but every human is at a different DNA potential, okay? And what I mean by that is we are crystallizing strands of DNA. So we have 12 carbon-based strands, which is our physical experience. That's what we gained from our mother in the womb, and it was coding from our human collective. And then we have 12 crystalline strands. Well, there's now going to be 13. 12 crystalline strands that are our more cosmic connection. And those tie into the universal grid system, okay? And so what we're doing as we ascend and as we continue to evolve is that those crystalline and carbon strands are becoming integrated. So what that means is we can use more of our non-physical information from the cosmic universe, from those timelines that our higher self has knowledge of in this reality. And the more decisions we make in this reality and interact consciously, the more we also affect those other timelines. So I think that what's interesting right now on the planet is we have more immediate access to those fragments than ever before in that Akashic Field than ever before. And that can be a stopping point for some of us because, remember, we draw it magnetically based on our vibration. So if we had something that happens to us that's terrible, that's okay. Right? We might have a past life that we're mirroring in that moment, and the way that we met that experience completely transitioned it in that life and in our life. But if we get stuck in the motion of it, we don't heal it, we might bring in other fragments at that dimension where similar things happened. And it compounds our physical experience. I actually channeled an article about this that's on the Awaken Empowered magazine site. But also the flip is true. So the more we ascend and the more we are conscious in our physical reality, the more those beneficial fragments we bring in from the cosmic universe, and we're integrating those. So yeah, it works both ways. But I absolutely believe that our higher selves are more installed in our technology than ever before, which means they're easier to work with. Whether you know it or not, or you're working with it or not, it's happening. That means we have more effect on all of those timelines and are drawing more information from them than we ever have before. But that happens on every dimensional level. So it makes sense to me that we've had to have ascended as a human collective even. Well, I'll say this. I'll back up and say this. I believe we were created in a 12th dimensional energy. So in a sense, we're returning back to that as a human collective. I believe that we were seeded by intergalactics, and at that time, the Earth itself was vibrating in a 12th dimensional reality, and we've just kind of stripped a lot of that away. And now we're reactivating that. So in a sense, we're reliving history. We're bringing all of that back to the planet.
So activation of all of these energies and whatnot, would that be considered enlightenment then? Or
well, remember, if you're activating DNA strands, that's your DNA potential. What that means is you have access to the Akashic Field, and that might be for a specific purpose, okay? And I'll use myself as an example. I channel to the 12th dimension. I bring 12th dimensional beings in, 9th dimensional, 8th dimensional, whatever I need when I'm channeling. I can't hold a 12th dimensional reality on this earth in this timeline, okay? So does that mean I'm not enlightened? Not necessarily. I really think enlightenment is a personal definition of how you want to meet your current reality. I don't think that there's any one coined definition for every human of what enlightenment truly is. And I think enlightenment is an ever-evolving process of our soul's experience. But our DNA potential is different in every human. And it might be different because you're a healer, and maybe you've activated or integrated 8, 9 strands of DNA, and you're using that as a healer to activate other people's DNA or to change their reality in some way, or, a teacher, whatever you might be doing. It's beneficial because you can also bring that information in for yourself. But at the same time, the dimension we hold on Earth is a collective activity. So it's like taking the sum part of every single DNA potential of every human and adding it up into one. And that's why it's such an interesting time on the planet right now, and we have multiple dimensions, because we've hit that threshold where a lot of us are vibrating in a more 5th dimensional potential. And I do think those of us who are here and those of us who are on the call, no judgment here, but I mostly believe that we're holding at least a 5-strand crystallized DNA if you're in this community. if you're in this movement. And we have some people on the planet who aren't. And that is the dimensional split of timelines right there, right? So the more we level that up, the more the collective is kind of going with us, because there's a lot of factors in this. Those of us who are in this movement, in this community, are vibrating at a higher speed, or we have access to higher vibrations. It's a new grid potential that we're utilizing. And less physical time in that grid system makes bigger impact than physical work does, if that makes sense. So we might be exploring our soul and doing some kind of really creative work an hour a day. But because of the way that we are now gridding ourselves to the universe, that work is really impactful on the collective. Like, it makes a huge, huge difference. I hope that makes sense. That makes sense? Yeah.
So you're a being of light, and you're here to help humanity. And I'm wondering, are there beings of darkness who are here to necessarily like stop the progression of the human collective?
Yes, I believe there are beings that are benevolent, and also those that are not. And most of my channeling focuses on a reptilian consciousness. And I believe that there was a cataclysmic event in their race, and that they ended up here on Earth in a very difficult situation. And because of that, they became integrated with our human collective. So when I speak of reptilians, it's a consciousness that has become one with us. So I do believe that in order for that reptilian consciousness to leave the Earth or clear the Earth, our only solution to that is working through our own timelines and addressing it in our own timeline. And really, it's just a match of energy, right? So we hear a lot about reptilian attachments. Honestly, every human has got some kind of reptilian connection, attachment. It's just a matter of, are you allowing that to be a part of your life? Are you aware? What degree are you aware of it? And how are you going to interact with it, right? If you find yourself interacting with it in fear, are you going to let it be the barrier to your happiness and joy and how you create? Then it most certainly will. It's embedded, it's ingrained in our hierarchical structures on the planet, so we're bombarded with it every day. But it is a mental access, it's a physical access, okay? So this reptilian consciousness, it must have the recipe of two things. Physical, it must affect physical, and the mind. And so that's why Divine Feminine comes in to change that, because physical and the mind is masculine energy, and masculine energy is necessary and needed. The problem is we've been out of balance in it, and that's how they've accessed us. So as we're focused in physical and focused in the mind, we become more vulnerable to reptilian consciousness and getting entrenched in some of those old societal paradigms. When we bring in that Divine Feminine, which is spiritual and emotional, and we're balanced in that, we can see reptilian consciousness in everyday activities. And we shift it simply because we interact with it differently.
So is that kind of the concept of dualism, where we need both sides of the spectrum in order to function on a perfect rotation?
Yeah, I do believe that is true as well. Light and dark, polarities, contrast, it's all a part of how our soul is meant to evolve. I think the infiltration of a reptilian collective and the way that it's ended up here was not a part of the plan. So I would say that that's outside of the range of that normal polarity that we're meant to experience. We also have to consider, going back to your question about negative entities, that we've had a lot of instability in the earth lately. And that instability has made our portals very unstable as well. It's been a lot of lack of integrity in our portals, which I think is now coming back into balance. So we have had a little influx here with some beings entering our earth that aren't of the highest and best. But I mean, we're always going to experience polarities of light and dark. I think we're meant to. If we didn't know darkness, we wouldn't know light, God, right? But this infiltration of reptilian consciousness, we can see it, right? I mean, it's something that it's not meant to be judged and fought up against. This is the thing I just want to point out. There's a lot of people on the planet who are trying to bring people to justice and uncover all these things. And I think we do have people who have assignments to bring this into the collective so that we have knowledge of it. But I don't think that's the way it's going to be resolved, right? We've been in an encapsulated grid system, meaning that the reptilian consciousness here has created timelines that could be skewed simply by flowing off Earth to other universal locations, star systems. The universal grid system exchanges information for the benefit of all races. So in that encapsulation, we were kind of vulnerable and victimized by this more masculine reptilian consciousness. But that's changing now. We have a new grid that's opened up our potential to go back into the universal grid system. That encapsulation is starting energetically to remove and release. Ultimately, I can tell you the Reptilian Collective that I work with, and they're very loving. They want to not have justice brought on this planet, but they want to reintegrate those reptilians into their collective and allow things to work out there. And the only way that happens is if we realize that that's a part of who we are and that we're ascending and they have to ascend with us. Right? That's the way it works. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I think we're going to do a channeling now. So for those of you who are new, we're going to do a trans-channeling experience. I'm going to bring in whoever is best for this room and everyone out there with a general message, whatever that's going to be. I don't know yet today. We will take questions, so we'll pass around the mic. So just raise your hand if you have a question. We'll prioritize you if you're in the room, and if you're out there, just go ahead and post in the chat, and Ethan will keep track of those. Sometimes we get processes activations, never know. If we do, we'll always tell you how to sit, breathe. And I just remind everyone, this is a vibrational experience. Don't get too lost in the words. If you just need to sit and breathe and meditate, you're going to get everything you need as uniquely as you are. And we are here from the Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution, so we do take donations. If you can donate, great. If you can't, it is not a big deal. But we use that to cover the room today. We have a variety of other activities going on. We have our Awaken Empowered Expo, which will happen August 11th through the 9th through the 11th in downtown Detroit. We also do a youth program. Weekend in Wizardry is our youth camp for kids. Aged 9 to 18, and we do a bi-weekly remote call with youth around the world who are rainbow and crystal and amazing kids and lots of other things. So we'll pass that basket around. If you can donate, great. If you can't, it's fine. And we will see who's going to come in today. We are the Council of Light. As many of us have gathered in this space, we are offering a vibration, a frequency of love that is permeating through the soul of all of you who decide to be one with us as we embark together on a journey of uncovering. This uncovering is meant to bring up information that lies dormant within your DNA that may be utilized uniquely by each of you in your own physical experience. We are a collective of many. We are 12th dimensional beings who have volunteered to come from many different galactic locations and star systems. We are charged with oversight of the universal grid system. We call it the time grid, not because it emanates in human time or physical linear time, but because it contains within it dimensional information that is shared based on magnetics. We want to explain this sharing process and the magnetic charge that all of you consume that enables it to work, pulling forth within your consciousness the most valuable information that is needed. And the reason we bring in this message today is that we notice many of you are upgrading in your ability to receive information, not from your physical experience and teaching institutions, but from that which lies beyond the veil, from that which lies within the Akashic Field. Now, the Akashic Field is a very massive energetic system. It holds in real time all that is, and it is continuing to expand as we speak. As the Council of Light, we have been very interested in observing this field as it vibrates and changes. It holds a harmonic resonance that is never consistent and always modifying based on every moment that you live on the earth and every moment that every other being in this universe is a participant. This is a very beautiful expression. It is something that we have now understood to not be fragmented in any way or available to any specific planet, but ordering itself consistently to how beings are evolving. And so we want to speak to the aspect of human evolution that we have seen here on this planet that is actually modifying your access to this harmonic field. Now, each of you, as a singular soul that is connected to a universal collective energy, has a unique harmonic as well. That harmonic is made up not only of how you perceive your identity, but it's made up by every experience you have had in your linear timeline. Imagine, as a soul, accumulating every experience that you have ever had to resonate in a very unique sound that is shown in your unique form. Many of you may wonder why it is you appear in physical to look the way that you do. And this harmonic is the basis for how human energy is forming material. Of course, these experiences of your past include your human families, those humans that you have chose to have contract with, that you've magnetized to support your soul's plan. That soul's plan is always calling forth more humans and experiences that are accentuating your physical and non-physical harmonic. But what's interesting to note is that as you have become more crystalline in nature, you are now tapping into a universal harmonic that is blending with your unique signature. And if we look at the Akashic Field as one harmonic, and humans tapping into the Akashic Field in their unique harmonic, you can deduct that you are all upgrading in your unique harmonic template. Now, the degree to which this is happening has much to do with the way that you associate your chakras and your DNA, and especially your light body and physical body movement and change. There has been a grid shift and a realignment of the poles. All of that is activating within you a connection of your technology. It is like utilizing the tools and patterns that have laid dormant within you to reassemble energetically all of the cooperative components that are needed to tap into the universal field. You see, Mother Earth, upon being born, and what many of you coined the Big Bang, which was actually a collective intention manifesting into form, know that she connects to the grid system, that upon her birth, she was connected, and many humans and intergalactics were responsible for gridding the galactic universe into the earth. Sacred ceremonies were offered, and beings landed upon your earth and hybridized into a human form to call that energy forward. A divine communication was born. When you are involved in any spiritual activity that is evoking a similar historic experience, that gridding of your own system becomes interlaid or interwoven with the earth. In other words, what we see going on right now is the earth is moving in position, a new harmonic location within the universal grid system. And there are reconnections being formed, being made to that universal time grid, to her. In the same way, you are regridding yourselves here in the collective earth experience. There are new humans coming in to meet your human experience based on that harmonic or that sound. There is a new experience in the physical body that may be manifesting to align you with this new harmonic that is now integrated within. And there are also opportunities for you to travel beyond the earth and retrieve very specific information that many of you have not been able to garner. Now, it's our intention today to give you some specific tools as to how to work with all of these transitions that are taking place. Some of you may notice them physically first, where there are ringing sensations or sounds in the ears, where there is kundalini activation in the body, or even where there's an incidence of extreme pain or fatigue. This is actually a signal of how your body is moving between these various harmonics. Also, there has been a distinct understanding on your planet that in order to quantify spiritual wisdom or knowledge, a message that may be coming in from higher dimensions, that it must be physically presented or received. In other words, it must be felt in the body. It must be seen in the third eye. It must be offered in a state that was familiar to you previously. Many of you may even believe that you are losing very valuable connections to the spirit beings and guides that you worked with before, when in fact, they're simply upgrading and becoming a part of your reality. Spirit beings and guides in the Akashic realm are energetic in nature and function in a one design. Every experience that they have, everything that they have to share is embedded within that field. And if you are now receiving the harmonic from that field, what that means is you are now in an equilibrium with these beings and guides. It is not as if you were ever lower than. It is just that you are receiving in a different harmonic than what is available in this current transition you are walking. You have now become collectively intended with all of us who vibrate in the meridians of this universal time grid. There's an organization system that takes place there that we want to speak to and help you to quantify when it is you are in need of information. And we want to give you a couple examples of how we see your energy fields best suited to work with this. First, one of the common themes that we see taking place on your planet is an influx of soul fragments coming to reunite with your current identity. This is the result of these pole shifting experiences and new grid experiences that are culminating within the earth. If you are one who is feeling overwhelmed or confused about the path ahead, and let us say you are either seeing many opportunities unfold before you, or you are feeling at fear of choosing the one that is most appropriate, what we ask for you to do is allow yourself the time before jumping into a physical decision to enable your new harmonic to become adjusted. Because if you are seeing a variety of soul fragments, opportunities, questions, timelines that you may create, it is simply because you have upgraded so much in this non-physical harmonic that your non-physical energy field is working out what is imbalanced within. And we know that as humans, it is important to you to step forward in physical action when these knowings come. What we ask of you is to intentionally slow down the speed of your thought process and your desire to jump into physical, and to have faith and trust in knowing that everything that is coming to you is an Akashic upgrade or influx of information. And that in order for it to become clear, you simply are in need of a time of integration or rest to allow the best decision to be made. And we want to say also that those of you who are practicing meditation with the goal of some message to be received in order to change your reality, We believe it will be very beneficial with this new harmonic to allow an open space and open potential for meditation, to allow you to choose whatever is best through the higher self portal to download into your human experience. That allows a faith and a trust. And we know that many of you go into meditation or spiritual practice anticipating that you may go somewhere that is not safe, that you may attract a lower vibrational being or consciousness. And what we are here to say is that this new harmonic connection to the Akasha is like an influx of guides and beings that are not here necessarily to protect you, but that vibrate beyond where a lower vibrational consciousness or being could possibly access. This is like tapping into the human potential that you were all designed originally to access. And simply going into meditative states or spiritual practice with an open field of potential or receiving will allow you to now work with and understand how information wants to come differently. And if you are in lack of judgment of that, you will also integrate this information well. We want to leave you with one more message, and then we are pleased to take questions. The way that humans vibrate in their plasma must also respond to this harmonic upgrade. This allows time travel between multiple dimensions to take place much easier. Your light bodies are closer now in proximity to your physical bodies than ever before, and you are the conscious conductor of these travels. What that means is that in order for you to receive information, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be garnered outside of you, so much that there is a valuable plethora of records and information that are waiting within. And simply falling into a relaxed state of breath will enable you to bring up memories through your plasma that are either coming up to serve or heal you, or are calling forth times of communication that you had as a human that you couldn't match the vibration of. In other words, you may have met with us and others, either on ships or here on the earth. And as you were able to recall that information or desired to recall that information, you couldn't access it due to the energetic that it was held in. You now match that energetic. And now it is easily coming up at times when you are deep in trance or meditative state. We simply ask also that you trust this inner knowing, that whatever is coming up is meant to be accepted by you, not so literally that it must be acted upon, but that it's a confirmation of how you are reorganizing your non-physical and energetic structures as highly conscious and enlightened humans. And we are pleased now to take questions.
When we pass on from these physical bodies, where do our souls go?
Yes, we are Archangel Gabriel, and we are very pleased to bring some information in about the soul's journey. This Akashic field that has been spoken of, it is a field of all that is. It resonates in a quantum energy. We consider the Akashic field to be a mirror image or likeness of God. So before we answer where a soul transitions, we want to bring in the concept of what God is and how God has evolved and fragmented itself into all of you, because that is the basis for how we understand a soul's journey. The God, the energy itself, desired to know of itself in many forms, to through the inner inquiry of an awakened human, for example, experience itself through other experiences. And so it fragmented itself into many different particles and atoms, and took great joy and excitement in experiencing how it would move and change throughout the galactic universe. This was the very first manifestation of a soul vibration. It was God fragmenting itself into other forms. So the human story is truly embedded within that God fragmentation. The universe was created through the essence of God, and as the universe took shape and form, planets and stars were born, and on those planets and stars, races were born, and souls became hybridized and took physical and non-physical form. And humans are one version of that planetary connection. Now, we want to bring you the original story of how a soul transitions, but then we are going to give an analogy of what's taking place in the now and what has taken place in the history of this linear timeline all of you are on. As a soul is moving beyond whatever form it finds itself in, it is reintegrated into the one, into the light, back into God. This is a quantum field. It is the field of all that is. And in that moment, it reunites with all aspects of itself. This is all beings, all experiences. It is very difficult for humans to conceptualize what this would be like. But imagine being in non-physical form and having the collective vision of all things universal. A soul goes back into that one energetic space and makes a collective decision to refragment again, not unlike God, because at the base core of every soul's intention is the desire to experience itself through time. So essentially, a soul's intention is always experiencing itself through time. Here on this planet, it's many timelines. In the universe, it's many timelines. From that point of integration, many decisions are made. Those decisions are not necessarily your own from a singular viewpoint. Your physical identity, your true essence, the being that you have named yourself to be in this life, is an imprint that goes on and on regardless of that soul reintegration. Every timeline in the universe, regardless of whether the soul has left the physical body or not, continues on in another dimension. And this is how many who practice mediumship on your planet are able to access information from family members and friends who have passed on, because it is easily able to access that imprint or identity in its current state, which is beyond the earth. Now we bring you back to this present moment, and there has been some discussion around an encapsulation of your earth. The Council of Light that oversees the universal time grid made a collective decision in the intention of the entire universe to uphold the integrity of timelines to encapsulate the earth. This was because there were experiences being created here that could affect other races in other dimensions. That encapsulation actually changed the way souls would reintegrate into the Akashic Field, or the field of all that is. The reason for this is that the souls that were coming forth on the planet during this encapsulation were taken outside of their divine plan. Each one of you as a soul fragment holds a divine plan, and that divine plan is rooted in sovereignty or freedom. And the sovereignty wasn't taken away from you because of the encapsulation. The sovereignty was taken away from you simply because a myriad of experiences took place here that held humans captive of the understanding that they were collectively focused, and they began to create realities that were harmful to themselves as well as others. So in this encapsulation, souls came back again and refragmented into another human body simply because the earth experience had not been ascended. This is now changing. As a matter of fact, we would say this has changed at least in the last linear year and a half with the connection of a new multi-galactic grid system. You can think of Earth as an open portal in which souls move in and out. So when you pass on as a human physical being, your soul will pass through a portal of the earth and reintegrate back into the one God, source, Akash, all that is. This portal was shut down. It was not functional. And it has come back online as well as reconnected to the universe. So what we're seeing now is the way that souls are passing on from human experience is more geared towards not only reintegrating into the true Akash or the true one, but also having a strong intention to refragment into other souls and embody forms elsewhere. There's the free choice to do this, of course, as you reintegrate, and now that free choice has been available to humans as it hasn't been for a very long period of time.
So when our souls reintegrate into the Akashic Field, the all, do we remain or do we retain our singular identity of I am that I currently have? So if I pass on and then when it becomes time to refragment, will I am the same as I am now, or will I be something or a different being when I live again?
Well, let us explain, because this is a very massive system of energetic organization. And before we get into the understanding, we want to remind you that you did choose to be human in this incarnation. Even if an encapsulation existed and you refragmented back through that encapsulated system, you had a desire to come back, because it was evident in you that it was your path of physical reality that would enable the earth to change. But that being said, you hold energetic containers and connections to various etheric realms within the universe. The soul is a container that is focused in physical or linear experience. This is where you cultivate a relationship with an identity. And that soul is made up of many fragments. So we first want to get into what a soul is made of. We'll give the analogy that many of you understand who are working with specific guides, teachers, and descended masters. Let us say you have a relationship with Master Jesus. That relationship with Master Jesus comes in as a parallel or important, significant relationship to you, because a fragment of Master Jesus has integrated within your soul. So the soul container is actually a space in which earthly or planetary timeline experiences culminate into a new form. And that soul plays out a specific linear timeline, holds an identity, understands itself as an earthly being. There's a higher self container. That higher self container has knowing of that soul's fragments in all dimensions. So every part of you that exists in another timeline is currently ongoing to infinity. And your higher self has recognition, because there's often a common thread woven through every single timeline your soul is on. And that common thread is what holds a soul vibration together. This common thread isn't just something like abuse or addiction. This is a soul theme that is a little different than the common thread at the higher self level. These common threads are intentional. Often they are very general in their focus. They may be to serve the human collective, to be a healer, for example, but regardless, they show up in a myriad of ways. You also have an oversoul container, which is your universal access. This is where your soul has been present in other dimensions and other races and other star systems, and there are a plethora of timelines that exist there as well. So when you pass on, the identity that you create in this life, this timeline that you've created, it continues to vibrate in the Akashic Field. Even though you may not be present any longer in a physical body and your soul has transitioned into the light, there is an aspect of you that continues to vibrate on and shifts dimensions. So in other words, the Bill, the Bob, the Mary, the Jake that you are continues a non-physical experience that has a range of perception beyond what humans can access. Your range of experience is very limited to what's happening here on the planet. But as you pass on, that identity, that imprint that you formed, takes on a new type of non-physical access. And there are varying degrees of this access. So we can't quantify any one range of experience for all humans. In other words, Some of you may carry on an identity in an angelic realm that is now perceiving itself as a human being that is interacting with others on the planet from that angelic realm. It varies in all humans how this takes place. But nonetheless, the identity that you formed, the human that you are, the name that you carry, continues on to infinity in the field of all that is. Now, when your soul reintegrates into another body, into a different race, whatever it may be, there's always an imprint from that identity that's coalesced and intermixed with who you are. If you were to understand the story of every single past life you've had on the earth, you would see in every single story something that mirrors what's going on today in this linear timeline. There would be an intricate connection, parallel, or synchronicity. And the reason for that is experience is always expanding. So if experience is expanding, if all beings, all races are expanding, then nothing is ever ending. It's only connecting with something else. And this is why timelines can cross. This is why we have past timelines that come into our awareness and show up in our physical reality. Because in a sense of expansion, our soul's intention is always to meet those past timelines and play with those themes again. It may have been simply because we struggled through them before, and we now know that we have the ability to meet them head on and resolve or heal them in this life. So what you're experiencing right now has a basis. Human beings, souls that enter a human body, have a basis for creation that they're operating in, and that basis is every experience that's happened before. So you may ask next, well, how am I a creator? You are using the Akashic Field as a plethora of experiences to transition and change and create to your likeness. This is why everything that you do in your singular reality affects the entire collective, because you are utilizing that Akashic knowledge as a basis. You may not be consciously aware of it in this physical experience you've chosen, but it is always siphoning through you and being utilized as valuable currency for the next experience on your journey.
So, is it possible to unite all of our soul fragments into one non-fragmented soul? And if so, what does that mean? And if not, why not?
These are the Pleiadians. This is the Pleiadian Collective. We are ninth dimensional, and this is what ascension is all about. The ladder of ascension is the integration of soul fragments all the way to the point of non-physical where there is no separate identity. So at the level of the earth, what you are doing is you are commingling and reuniting with yourself, not only as past fragments of energy, but in also human beings who show up in different identities. This is why the I am in you, you are in me philosophy is so relevant, because the soul fragments that you're meeting don't just come in non-physical, they also come in physical form. So let's talk about dimension and exactly what's happening with soul fragments in every single dimension. When you exist in the third to the fourth dimension, for example, you're using the Akashic Field or soul fragments as the basis for creating a new timeline. And you have a separate identity simply because it was your intention in physical to experience reality that way, as a separate being of the one, such that you could recreate everything that you've ever done before in a new form. And as you move into the fifth dimension, for example, even the sixth, we would say, this is truly where a lot more of the cosmic fragments of your soul begin to reunite. So in a third to fourth dimensional reality, you really focused on those soul fragments from the earth. This is why you experience a lot of earthly soul partners and soul contracts, because these energies are very earthly based. You're reuniting yourself through time with experiences that you had that you know are an opportunity to continue to ascend. And essentially, you do this. As you walk through a soul partnership, let's say, even if it is a very difficult soul partnership, if you walk through it to the other side, making a slightly different decision than you did in the lifetime before, you've now integrated that soul fragment. What happens, we find, is that humans replay karmic experiences in exactly the same frequency, and that prevents them from integrating their fragments. In other words, in the encapsulated grid that was present, that was very third dimensionally focused, you all were entrained into a separate identity, so much so that you weren't recognizing the opportunity to do this as it was coming up. And it was more evident in you to replay karmic timelines in this way. But we do see now that many of you are integrating soul fragments at a very fast pace. 5th to 6th, even 7th dimension is integrating more of your cosmic soul fragments. Now, some of you on the planet are already doing this. You've opened up the cosmic potential of the Oversoul. You're drawing in past timelines from Pleiades and Arcturus and Andromeda and so many other locations. This is another level of how a soul becomes integrated. So when you think about higher dimensions, perhaps 11th or 12th, there truly is no reason for a separate identity because the integration with all things has come to a point of non-physical reality. There aren't any separate thoughts. There are only thoughts in unison, and those thoughts come at a common intention because ascension has taken place to the degree that the consciousness is in respect of itself so much that it must have that much respect for all others. And the 12th dimension is really the closest you can get to this universal Akashic field or merging back together with the one. We consider that when souls merge or reintegrate with the one, it's a temporary energetic decision that's being made, and movement is always required. The 12th dimension is simply a group of beings that desire to remain in that energy without a singular identity because there's a specific purpose that they are upholding. So as souls, you all come here with an individualized intention, an individualized purpose. It's not a lower than reality simply because you haven't reintegrated your soul fragments. It's simply a choice or an opportunity for you to experience universal reality differently than you would if you were in a different dimension.
Yes, I was wondering if you could talk about the narcissistic person and also narcissism passed on from sons to fathers.
Yes, we're very pleased to get the Arcturians stepping in. And we first wish to recognize that this word narcissism that is used on your planet is often used over what it should be used to define humans. Narcissism, as you have defined it on your planet, simply refers to the way an ego has evolved. And so we want to become, we want you to become with us very aware of how the ego structure was first designed, how it has evolved, and how some humans are coined in this energy. Because essentially what we perceive narcissism to be is the inability to see beyond the self. And the ego is set up as a structure to recognize itself through all things. It is lending itself very well to the conversation that was brought in previously about soul reintegration, because you are truly fragmented here as individual and unique form, such that you can recognize yourself through all others. But through a very reptilian and hierarchical societal structure that has been created here on your planet, the ego structure in its original form to actually strengthen you as a soul and a collective being has been taken out of context. You have been trained into a vibration to judge your outer reflection in your outer world as a criterion for you to survive on this planet. And if you look at the base frequency of any human who's operating in a narcissistic way, it is simply the inability to recognize all others through the self, but to survive such that they are using that outer reflection to always create their reality in advantage of others. This is a model that is not unlike so many of your societal templates and structures that are present today. You have all been entrained into a survival mode, and that survival is at the expense of other humans. And if you look at essentially crime that is present on your planet and why humans do things to harm other humans, it's because of this concept that survival must take place and there must be a protective mechanism that is always running in the background to enable that soul to thrive and to hold themselves in the highest and best alignment of this human planet. So narcissism isn't necessarily a trait that's passed on from generation to generation in the DNA, in that sort of pattern. It's learned. It is a learned activity, and it becomes learned very easily in very younger aged children. Because if that child is observing something in a soul contract, a parent that says, I must be in survival mode and I must protect myself to the degree that I am not considering the resonance of other humans, this is something that builds in the structure to play out later in life. Now, narcissism in itself is a reflective mirror that can be dealt with by humans in a very beneficial way. In other words, if there is a narcissist that you're dealing with, or someone who is not upholding their ego in the highest and best of humanity, the way that you interact with that human has embedded within it a very valuable opportunity to change this pattern for humanity. In other words, there are so many humans that become entrapped or taken in by narcissists because they don't have the strength of the ego themselves to combat what they are experiencing in the human in their life. So we see these on opposite spectrums. There are some that you define as a narcissist who are holding their ego in such a discordant way that they believe that they must at all costs work through other humans to siphon valuable currency or energy. And then we have humans on the other side of the spectrum who have lost such sight of their ego that they have become weakened in their ability to recognize a beneficial relationship with their outer world. So they are always letting go of, they are always giving. They aren't able to also accept and receive in the same way that you've been designed to do. So if we look at the ego structure as beneficial, it is in balance in that it is able to offer and it is able to also receive. So if you are to look at the way you respond to a narcissist in your life, you can find the areas that need to be strengthened within you that enable the change to take place in the relationship. In other words, it doesn't have to be about necessarily becoming at the same level of that or becoming the same identity of that narcissist in order to rid it from your life, but to find the balance in the offering and receiving that enables you to set very strong patterns or boundaries around how you interact with other humans. The divine feminine, we believe, is something that is coming to negate this pattern in humanity. And the reason for this is that if you are to meet a narcissist with compassion, the narcissist is not able to function in its egoic structure in the way that it perceives. It is actually requiring some kind of resistance in the field that is often found and thrived upon. We know that compassion might be taken by you as a weakness, but compassion can actually be a strength. It can be an area where you uphold so much of your own boundary system in love and in support that the narcissist doesn't have the ability to step into your energy field. What we see oftentimes is The narcissist will begin to inner question its reality the moment that you show love and compassion for yourself. Not consciously so much, but at the level of the soul. Simply, many humans who are considered to be narcissists are simply at varying levels of ego integration. And it is not necessary to let go and rid yourself of the ego so much as it is to realize the masculine and feminine balance wants to give you an ego that sees yourself as the most beautiful, unique soul on the planet that you are. And when you are fully and completely in that light, these types of humans and soul contracts truly cannot affect you, and we believe won't be magnetized to your experience any longer.
I was wondering if there's signs to tell you what direction to go in life based on the choices that you make. Are there signs to help guide you to different dimensions and to help you assure where you're supposed to go?
Yes. We are Kuan Yin. And we first wish to say that the human path, the soul journey, is not one that is always easy. There are a variety of transitions that you will walk, and you are coded to do so. Your divine plan is always being upgraded, and your soul, if it is on a plan of ascension or raising its vibration and consciousness, will continue to experience discomfort and unknown as a sign that it is truly evolving. We want to talk about the concept of decisions in a different way, because humans see decisions in a very physical and linear light. Your soul, your higher self, actually sees them quite differently. When you are making a decision, you believe that you are either right or wrong, but based on the consequences or the experience following that decision. But a soul that is truly evolving is always making decisions for the highest benefit of itself. It may not be seen that the decision that you made was actually coming to manifest a new reality in the moment that you make it. But if you are judging that experience based on what shows up next, you are negating the beauty of how your creative energy desires to flow. So signs and signals truly come in a different light than what humans have been trained into. Because your sign may simply be, I took a path and I made a decision, and it was difficult or uncomfortable, so it must be wrong. And we are here to tell you that the signs and synchronicities of an ascending soul are typically confirmation at a higher level and a trust that everything is working out for the betterment of the self. That source energy is present in every decision and is always going to guide you to the next place to make another decision. Because decisions are simply moving energy. When you are making a decision, all you are doing is moving energy. So if you have a divine plan that is playing out for your soul, and in the decision you're moving energy, you are simply being a participant in the physical plane of how your divine plan, which is non-physical, is playing out. In that realm, or in that light, non-physical reassurance and synchronicities become very valuable. So we want to bring in 3 separate messages about how you can recognize these and how they may be shown to you, especially right now on the planet with the structures that you have attained. First, any evaluation of any decision that you make in this life as a soul should rest in linear time. In other words, humans are very quick to jump to decisions about what they have done because they are always ready to change that reality to their liking. Instead of trying to avoid suffering, if something that you've done or a decision that you made may feel unsteady, we simply ask for you to be present there for a while, to relax in and breathe into the space that you're in. The energy that you have now moved to is brand new. And there is a series of unfoldings that take place energetically after we've made a physical decision. Because remember, Everything that manifests is coming from a template in your non-physical field. When you make a decision, you have already aligned with something in the non-physical that was brewing so strong that it was ready to manifest. So the question becomes, did you really make the decision, or did your soul create that path and you simply agreed with it? So if you're present with that and you allow yourself to sit in that present moment before you jump to conclusions, we believe that you'll find the signs, the synchronicities, the confirmations that you desire simply in that present moment, knowing that everything that lies within it is meant to be experienced by you. The next level up is truly what exists within your extrasensory energy field. And we know that many of you rely on this when it comes to making decisions. You may ask the body if there is a specific food that it desires to eat, and simply by holding it in your hand, your stomach would turn. And that is a communication that is far more valuable than anything you could receive from your spirit guides and teachers. So we call you into those more connective moments with your body to hear the messaging that your consciousness is filtering through your material. And that if you're standing at the cusp of a decision, or even at the other side of it, that you tune into how the body feels, not in a state of stress. And this is why we say relax first. That you let go of the need for time and physical change and jumping into new decisions, that you stay present with what is, and then from that state of connectiveness and centeredness, tune into the extrasensory field around you. How do the people in this space feel to you? How does being present in that space evoke emotion within your body? These are all signs that are meant to bring you into the realization of the next steps. And finally, as your guides, teachers, and masters are all present in this room, they encourage you to inquiry with them about decisions, but to not look for them to give concrete yes or no. Because it is, as guides, teachers, masters, and intergalactics, it is our highest intention for you to experience free will. We would never step on that free will or squelch it in any way. We're here to guide you to the most exciting and uplifting experiences. We're here to offer meaning for you around your physical journey. But the way in which we offer messaging beyond the subconscious mind and connecting as a channel is truly in the physical realm. That if you are present, you will see the signs as number synchronicities and words in a magazine or in a newspaper. The answers to your question are always present in the physical field, organizing themselves into a pattern. It takes for you to be present in that moment to see the pattern that exists. Number synchronicities are simply signs that you are upgrading dimension, that you are ascending. And when you are seeing them, it's important for you to tune in to what you were thinking or feeling before you see them. This is a very valuable tool for humanity. When you are thinking about a decision that you made and judging it, and you see a number synchronicity, perhaps you are meant to fly above the experience as your higher self would do, to see it differently, to perceive it differently than the judgment was making. So we encourage you to use these tools as you continue to evolve and make decisions, but especially to continue making them. Because anytime you are stifled in making a decision, you are simply resisting movement. And that movement is necessary, always carrying you to the next reality.
Can you provide some insights on how to address doubt about your ability to meet the needs of ascension, especially the physical body challenges?
Yes. We are Kuan Yin. And this is an experience that so many humans are having on the planet in this time. This doubt has been instilled in you from your birth here. Because what you are up against as a physical collective is a non-physical transition. And many of you have become very adept at either walking through physical transition or resisting physical transition, that you have not become very acquainted with the way that non-physical is meant to show up. And from our perspective, doubt simply arises because there is something within you that has, in a past relationship to human experience, created an analogy, a personality, an identity that is not good enough. And spiritual evolution and ascension is not to attain goodness. It is simply to uncover all of the barriers within yourself to that doubt. So when doubt is coming up, we believe that it is a valuable opportunity for humanity to simply uncover where the doubt is coming from. And as we say this, we don't wish for you to spend too much time in the analogy of the doubt itself, other than to recognize that it's there. Because the simple recognition that you as a soul are doubting your own journey, whether it be of the physical body or of the non-physical self, is like shedding light on a pattern that must change. You simply stating this question to us in this moment is not unlike a conscious key code that desires for it to reorganize energetically within your field. And this is why we propose so much that you become present with what is in the now, that you don't resist the doubt or the pain or the discomfort that you feel, but you become its best friend. Because in that friendship, in that closeness to whatever you are feeling, you are recognizing it. And in the recognizing of it, the knowledge that is embedded within it must be shared. Within the word, the frequency, the definition of doubt, there is a microcosmic Akashic field that is waiting for you to explore. It is doubt that has come up in you in so many other lifetimes. It is doubt that's come up in you in so many experiences with other humans, within your place of work, within your ability to make decisions for yourself. And it's not important to go back and heal every single one of those Akashic experiences, but to simply act opposite of what that doubt is calling for. In other words, if the doubt is calling for you to stall a decision or to simply choose something that wouldn't be in the highest and best for you out of safety, make the radical different decision. Be in so much confidence of your choice that there is no rational explanation for that confidence. And when you do this, you're actually bringing in a frequency of trust. And that frequency of trust will carry you beyond the physical components of any decision that you're choosing. Especially, let us bring in the physical body. There are so many of you who are taking the journey of some diet in order to improve your non-physical or physical self. And in the doubt that it is the right thing for you, you are setting yourself up for failure. Because it could be what humans define as the worst diet in the world. But if you trust so much that it is necessary for your experience in this time, it will become for you that best path to take. So physical material actually becomes transformed by intention. And we ask that you play with this. Allow your doubt that is shown to simply be the catalyst for radical acceptance. And in that radical acceptance, allow yourself to be very present with what unfolds next.
I was given information due to the type of work that I do, grid work, and my DNA has been fragmented. Could you explain in more detail what it is, what is the reason for fragmented DNA? I feel that I'm here to integrate my physical with my subtle bodies, so this message confuses me.
Yes, we're the Arcturians, and we don't think the terminology is right. We want to change the terminology of fragmented DNA, because when you are a grid worker, there's an energetic connection that you are making to any other grid system you are working on. And we'll give you some examples, because if you work with grids, You may be a healer who is working with the meridian system of any human. You may simply be working within the earth grids, or you may work within the universal grids. These are channels for moving energy and for shifting patterns of energy from discordant to more crystal or beneficial. This is an informational type of exchange. Grid workers are using their own meridians and energetic structure as a crystalline bridge to tap in and access and move information. So if you are using your DNA as a grid worker, it doesn't necessarily become fragmented so much as it becomes energetically connected and exchanged temporarily with the soul, planet, star system, or grid that you're working with. This is because your human DNA is a connective electromagnetic bridge to the universal time grid in all dimensions. And every human is embodied in a 12-strand DNA that is coded and synchronized to 12 different dimensions. So let us say, as a grid worker, you're working with a singular human who needs to integrate a DNA strand in order to change a reality. And let us say that DNA strand is in the 7th dimension and there is not a 7th dimensional potential in this human. You may be utilizing your crystalline DNA in order to create a bridge to that grid and access and exchange information. It's not unlike, it is actually, we'll say, the microcosm of the macrocosmic universal experience of how a new grid system is being connected from the earth to the universe. The 5th dimensional or multidimensional grid system we often speak of is a temporary grid. It's meant to bridge back to God. It ties into the DNA and the meridians, the electromagnetic meridians of Gaia, and it forges a connection through sound harmonic to the time grid that is universal. So it is the same process. The fragmentation is simply just an analogy of how you are exchanging information through your channeled meridians and your own DNA on behalf of another human.
Please provide some insight into what's happening in the Tahiti Grid area.
Okay, so actually we are the Tahitian Collective. There are many of us, we are ancient Tahitians, and we first wish to explain that this entire area is a galactic portal. There are crystalline energies and grid system connections that run beneath the waters in this area that are known to be sacred. They are multidimensional in nature, and there are crystalline caves that have formed that elemental properties have activated the land. And that land itself can be utilized with the healing properties and the grids underneath to accentuate any human timeline. But we want to explain, of course, that the transition that many of you are aware of within the earth regarding the portals is affecting every single significant site and portal upon the earth. It is often activating those portals such that they are being restored, but at times they can also be unstable because information is exchanging and moving. What we wish to say is that there has been an influx of crystalline energy coming through the meridians of Gaia into the portals in this area, making them very high vibrational. Actually, we wish to say that they were used for intergalactic communication between the Earth and other star systems. The Andromedans are actually stepping in and showing us that they have an intricate connection with many of these portals and crystalline caves and waters, and they have come to the planet in hybrid form to work on them and to access them and to use them for healing. some of the cosmic lineage or history of this area is simply coming back into alignment, making it a very active portal. Some of this may feel as if it's being disturbed in movement underneath the Earth and within the planet. Many of the geographic locations that are similar to this on your planet are experiencing disturbances such as this. Where there are high winds and shifts in the ocean, tides are either receding or coming back in abundance. This is a natural part of how the pole shift is causing so much reorganization on your planet. In general, our collective still vibrates very strongly on your planet and in this space, and the ancient tools that we have used to heal humanity are meant to be revealed and come to the surface. These are things that you have not even understood yet in your past access of our lineage and in the lineage of others. There is a synchronistic code that is embedded within Gaia that connects to a fault line. And that fault line will energetically pull information from the portal of Gaia that's multigalactic to accentuate the healing potential in this area in the coming linear 1.5 to 2 years. What we believe is that where you perceive differences in the Earth's electromagnetic fields and weather patterns, that this will come to a balance. And what will be revealed is more cosmic information and healing technologies for humanity.
It's been said that one distinction between Indigo and Crystal Children is structural. Indigos are operating from a strong connection to their oversoul containers. Crystals have an advanced integration between their cosmic and human DNA. My question is, how might these distinct differences be played out in the spiritual lives and practices between indigos and crystals?
Yes, actually, we're the Zeta Collective, and we are pleased to come forth. The indigos, first, we will say, and the crystals are different, are structured differently simply because they come as collectives with different intentions. And we first wish to bring this message forward because we believe it's one of the most important to understand, that although structural differences will predispose collectives of humans to specific gifts and abilities at specific times, collectives such as these will come forth because they hold a collective intention. And as children are hybridized in the hybridization project within the galactic universe, they are being led to different co-creative groups in order to strengthen the vibration and come to the planet to offer these various intentions. The indigos, first, we wish to say, are ones that do connect very widely with their oversoul container, and they have the ability to bring information in at the speed of light from the Akashic universe. This is helpful not simply because they are meant to share this information, but it gives them an overall sense that the Earth is a cosmic union, that there are no differences between the Earth that they have chosen and their multi-galactic homes. They are bringing that multi-galactic essence to the planet, and part of their intention here is actually to work with what humanity has created in material and bring it into a more non-physical application. When we look at things like technologies, for example, that are beneficial to support humanity from an open source experience, these indigo have the knowledge and are able to download very quickly schematics and drawings and energetic templates that can be utilized for healing and can bring to the planet a plethora of new opportunities and technologies, even things like psychic surgery, for example. These are all things that these children may be focused on. Crystal children are really just accessing information differently. And remember, the oversoul container is just simply a way of connecting with timelines from the cosmic past. Think of crystal children as being so connected to other timelines where they have done amazing things in the cosmic universe that they have the ability to live very parallel experiences here. Crystal children, utilizing the crystalline DNA, are actually tapping into the universal Akashic system, the grid system. This is a little different way of accessing information structurally, but nonetheless can be utilized in exactly the same way. These crystalline connections, not unlike the question that was brought forth about the electromagnetic grids, will harness information and connect the earth in communication to this information. And it isn't just technology and non-physical schematics, templates, and healing that the crystals are here for. They are actually forming an electromagnetic bridge back to God as a part of their intention. So simply holding a crystalline 12-strand DNA is actually pulling the earth into its location. Regardless of what separate purpose or intention they might identify with, or what desire they have to create specifically in their own timeline, as a collective, you can look at them as a very large crystal magnet that was dropped upon the earth that is assisting in pulling her back into her original position in the universal time grid. This is a very significant part of their assignment here, and it goes on often without their conscious knowing. However, it does amplify their crystalline abilities, making them very adept channelers, healers, and also able to time travel, because when you are using all 12 of the crystalline strands of DNA, you have the ability to move between dimensions very quickly. So they may find themselves time traveling as a part of their assignments and utilizing information from interdimensional beings that can be applied now in this linear timeline very effectively.
I would like to ask about technology. I feel like I'm receiving messages through tech, words, sentences, and visually. When I was young, I channeled it, and it scared me, and I feel like this is another way for them to get through without scaring me. What is this, and are others feeling this?
This is the Arcturians. Well, it would be very difficult for us to answer this question in a collective way, except to say that you guys are all, as humans, coded differently to different assignments, intentions, gifts, and abilities. However, remember, there's a collective raise in frequency that is bringing back some of your childhood memories. This is plasmic in nature and was brought through in the original message of the council. So some of the things that you may have negated as young children or couldn't possibly remember or integrate into your present moment are coming back as very valuable because you're bringing them back and matching them in your plasma. Anytime you have a channeled event activity, visitation, for example, it is not your physical body that is going on that journey. It is your plasmic self. It is your non-physical technology that is exchanging at that rate of speed. When we are receiving downloads such as this, often, even as a young child or an adult, they may not be meant to be taken literally as of yet. So our first advice to you is to relax on what you're receiving and simply receive it. Whether you desire to encode it or journal it or keep track of it, it is simply coming and strengthening in its ability to make logical, conscious sense on the planet. Every human having a specific intention will meet specific beings, downloads, and upgrades at specific times. And you are never doing this wrong. Remember, you are coded in a divine plan, and that divine plan is collective in nature as well as singular. So as we've mentioned, a lot of information today about the transition of the soul beyond the earth and having a divine plan, there is also a more magnetic and collective plan at work as well. Divine time is how the collective calls from you what is needed at exactly the right time that you are ready to receive it. It's a symbiosis. It's a relationship that is collectively embedded within all of you. So if it is something that you are not doing as of yet, it is most likely because it wasn't time. But if you are coming to terms with it now, in that it was something you resisted before that you are trying to wrap your mind around and understand now, it is simply because you are coded to do so. And The understanding will come the more you intentionally go towards. We know that there is a lot of fear embedded in these exchanges. And we want to give you a way to discern as to whether or not you should be in fear when you are receiving this type of information. First, the conversation itself, what you are receiving, can be deemed valuable not based on how you understand its application within humanity, but with how it feels to you as it becomes received. Because everything that you are connecting with is a vibrational match. So if at the time you are traveling and you are receiving this information, you are already in a state of fear before it started, you are probably drawing something that is either not useful to you or would cause more disturbance or confusion. If you found yourself simply in a relaxed state, open and willing to receive, and your intention was to bring in whatever was highest and best, or if it was received by you with no request at a time when you are simply still and in a very balanced state, we'd say these are times to discern that there is something going on within your inner and outer communication that is a valid acceptance for you. If you also find that further down the road, the information becomes applicable and helpful to humanity, this becomes another way in which to discern. What we advise is that you utilize intention as a very valuable tool in this situation, because intention really does blend very well with the concept of discernment. You are a conscious technology, and wherever your body or mind or soul or spirit desires to time travel can simply be intended by you before it happens. And this is simply by setting yourself up very well in a daily practice to intend that whatever is best suited for you in the collective be connected with. It can be a very open intention such as this. But if you're utilizing this intention and going towards, especially constructive questioning, we believe that you will better be able to discern. Because what you resist cannot be discerned. What you are in fear of cannot be discerned. Anything that is fearful to you, if met in a very strong stance of confidence and self-centeredness with very valid and intentional questions, can be easily understood. As a matter of fact, we believe that if lower vibrational beings are coming to you and offering you information, the more you are in fear of that information, the more you are going to distort the signal. If you stand ready to question who is there and to intentionally understand the information, you will find that you will naturally gravitate into a more beneficial zone or frequency or vibration that will support what it is that you desire. We advise that you become excited about this opportunity to explore what you are connecting with and communicating with. And if it does turn out to be something that isn't necessarily the highest and best for you, take great reverence in the fact that the communication took place. Because if it did, that means you are capable of having communication take place again. And it is now just your choice as to how you navigate that intergalactic communication.
Could you conclude the session, please?
Yes. We're the Council of Light. All of us who are here present in the space have been very pleased and honored to be a part of your energy field, and we welcome any opportunity to work with you, either singularly or collectively, as you go forth through your soul's journey. We offer to you that this transmission was vibrational in nature, and regardless of what you have intended to understand, it has been offered and given and will be integrated in the coming weeks. Many blessings.